Hey, this is John with Coonskin Hollow Farms. I'm here today with my lifelong buddy Cody Longshore and his wife Mallory, and we're here on their farm. It's called Longshore Farms today, and we're just going to be doing a quick tour of their property, and we're going to be asking them some questions about what they do here. How long have you been here?
We've been here about 8 years.
What do you do here on Longshore Farms?
We run a small commercial meat goat operation. Run about 60 head of goats here. Trying to get into some honeybees and a few pastured chickens and baby goats, obviously.
Okay, all right. So you're in the goat business. Why did you pick goats over cows?
Goats are a lot easier to handle than cows. I mean, a lot less equipment that you need, smaller land requirements.
They're excellent for small homestead, for a smaller homestead.
How much land are you working with here?
18 acres.
18 acres, okay. And so I noticed that you've got, how much do you have fenced in here right now?
There's about 6 acres here, and then there's another 6 acres back here.
I got you.
So we're about 12 acres right here.
I got you.
We're gonna finish fencing in. We're in the process of getting this last little bit fenced in.
Okay. Cody took me on a little ride on the side-by-side yesterday, and he showed me some fence lines that they've been cutting, and so he's still got a lot of forage back here that is going to be great free goat food.
Yeah, free's always better.
That's right. That's right. Right now, what kind of goats do you have?
We've got really just got a mixture of just a commercial goat operation, really. We've got boar, we've got Kiko, a little bit of Spanish, and then recently we've mixed in some myotonics. Some people may know those as a Tennessee meat goat, a fainting goat, all kinds of different names. Got a little bit of dairy goat in there also with some Nubian and some La Mancha.
Okay, and so the fainting goats are the ones that fall over when somebody sneezes.
Yeah. And there's different levels of that. I mean,
I got you. Up the road from my farm, there's a lady that drives a school bus, and she's got some of the fainting goats, and she said that she'll come down the road sometimes and shut the engine off, and that bus will backfire and some of them will fall over in the pasture. Do you think she's telling me a lie?
We get people coming by here. We're on the main highway, and there's people coming through here. They'll lay down on the big truck horns and just to see what's going to happen.
I got you. I got you. So their back legs will lock up and they'll just fall over.
Oh yeah.
I got you. I got you. So you got boar, Kiko, myotonic fainting goats, and a
little bit of Spanish.
I saw La Mancha out there too. That's the one with no ears.
No ears. Everybody knows them as no ears.
I got you.
That's really just to improve our really improves our milking lines. It adds, their babies are going to be better milkers than a lot of your meat goats.
And that's good for the babies too, because they get more nutrition.
Right, they're going to raise a bigger kid a lot quicker.
Okay, all right. And so, and we're gonna go around and look at some of the goats later on in the video. But how many head do you have right now on these 3 sections of pasture that you've got? How many head do you think that you've got?
There's around 60 head, including the babies.
Okay.
There's 30 head of mamas and yearlings. Got 2 bucks at this point in time right now.
Okay.
Most of those numbers are going to be babies.
I got you.
We're probably going to be around 35 head on babies at this point in time.
35 babies.
By the end of feeding season, we'll probably have about 35.
How long have you had goats on the property?
We got our first goats in 2014.
Okay. Okay, so from 2014, how many kiddings would you say you've had in between now and then?
4. We do one kidding a year.
We do one kidding a year.
One kidding.
You can do 2, but that pushes them.
Yeah, those goats that come in 2014, they were actually just bred in 14, so they didn't really have their first kids until early 15. Around this time in 2015.
We talked a little bit yesterday about improving your herd, and that's what you've done is tried to improve and keep the good ones and breed back and stuff. And so this time when you had babies, I noticed that you've got a lot of good mamas out here that take care of their babies, and you've only had to bottle feed how many this time out of, what'd you say, 39?
35. There, we've got one right now.
One, and this one's
This girl right here. Her
Okay.
name's Lulu.
okay.
Bing.
And that's no fault of her mom's or hers either. It's just she was a triplet on the farm, and she was a little bit weaker than her two brothers, and
Right.
so we made that option to pull her because the brothers were kind of booting her away from her mom, and we try not to bottle feed, but then again we don't want to lose something that we can prevent.
So you're saying sometimes with triplets there's not enough nutrition to go around, or
No,
there's-
it's going to be
Okay.
you're going to have babies that kind of get that some's a little bit stronger than the other ones, and they get booted away. And
Both of her brothers were a lot bigger than her, so it's just natural selection.
just like with dogs, you're going to sometimes have a run of the litter, and lots of times they get pushed away, but there's things you can do to prevent that.
okay.
No sense in losing a kid when you don't have to.
Right, yeah. And so, okay. So when the babies come, at what age do you sell them? We just had somebody pull up 10 minutes before we started this video wanting to buy a goat. They just pull in off the highway sometimes looking,
Mhm.
It happens.
this lady said she rides by here all the time, and they just decided to stop today because they saw you outside.
Yeah, right.
And so when these babies are born, how old is this one?
3 weeks old.
Yeah, she's 3 weeks old.
3 weeks old. And so that's too young to sell to somebody that just pulls in and wants to buy a goat. At what age do you start letting them go?
We could sell her as a bottle baby, but we really don't. We're not in the practice of doing that. And I mean, there's on occasions if we get too many, we will sell them as a bottle baby, but we're not really in the business of selling baby goats. There's a lot of risk that you can take in that, and we're pretty much going to take the risk for you and raise that goat to probably at least 8 months to a year old before we sell anything
Okay.
like that.
When you say you're taking the risk on it, you just want to make sure that your customers are getting a healthy animal when they pull onto your farm.
That's right.
In other words, you're building the reputation of your farm to have good quality livestock
Right.
on this property, and when somebody pulls in, Longshore Farms is a name that they can trust.
Right.
In
Right.
other words. Okay. We know that with goats, there's always that issue of parasites, and so
Right.
that's a known thing that you're going to have to deal with goats, because goats are not native to this land,
No.
and they weren't really made to be put in a pasture and eat grass on the ground. That's not
Right.
that's not how they were made. So when you do have parasite issues, just tell me a little bit about how you deal with that, and what are some of the preventative things that you do to try to manage that.
That's going to be really more Mallory's end of things, so I'm going to let her take that one.
We do not worm on a schedule. There's no need in worming when there's not a problem. We spot check and go off the FAMACHA score, which we can talk about in a later video.
Okay.
But we just spot check, look at their eyelids, look at their color, and if they look like they need worming, we'll hit them with 3 different classes.
Okay.
10, and then 10 to 14 days later, we'll hit them again, and usually that solves the problem. This year we have added, I don't know if you can see behind me, the cows are gone. We've added some mini cows to our herd with the pasture rotation, and we've heard, or through other people that have experimented with it, that the cows and goats, they don't share worms.
It's called
So-
cross grazing.
Cross grazing, yeah.
Okay.
That adding them to your herd will help prevent parasites, and so far this year we've had really good success with it.
I got you.
And I'm going to hit on another little subject. You said they're not native to this area.
Right.
One thing we've done a little different that people don't see is the Myotonic is the only native goat to the United States. In this area, this local area.
That's why they call it a mountain goat.
Yeah, they were native to the Tennessee area.
Okay.
So they're used to foraging through the areas that we have, you know, and used to this environment. They're really tolerant to cold and hot weather snaps like we have here.
Okay. When you're checking these little guys, you're pulling their eyelids down and you're looking for a dark pink color.
Dark red. Red's even better. I mean, but you know, there's a certain level you don't want to go under, and we'll talk about that more with the FAMACHA score. But
Okay.
that's really, there's a chart that you can look at that's going to tell you, it's going to give you the color of their eyes, and it's going to say, okay, worming is needed or worming is not needed. But you definitely don't want to get them on a regimen, because you're building you're basically building worms that are, and parasites that are going to be intolerant and resistance to the wormers that you're using.
So the parasites get immune to the medicine that you're giving them.
And you can create a super bug that you can't get rid of.
And once you've hit that area, you're back to the drawing board. There's nothing else you can really do on your farm.
Yeah.
You can also do a fecal if you choose to. I know lots of other farmers that we've talked with, they have gotten their own microscopes and learned how to do their own fecals, so the vet doesn't have to do it. But I mean, a lot of the time you can tell from the FAMACHA score, but sometimes
any of your local vet's office can do a fecal for you also, if you ever run into that problem.
Sometimes, in rare occasions, the FAMACHA score is not a good telltale. You'll still have a problem, and a fecal is required for you to figure out what your problem is.
And it may not be parasites. You don't really know what you're dealing with until you gain some experience in it.
Okay. Yeah, experience is always going to be the best teacher, which is going to segue us into the next question, which is going to be for somebody. Let's take, for instance, this young girl that just pulled up 5 minutes ago. For somebody that's brand new, that wants to get into goats, that's never done it before, tell me some things that you would steer them into and some things that you would steer them away from. Like, how many goats would you start with? Would you start with younger goats? Would you start with more experienced goats, older goats? 1, 2, 5? How many would you get? And we've talked about this before. When I first got into goats, I set myself up for failure because I got 2 smaller goats that were maybe 3 or 4 months old, and that's the only 2 I had, and they were not experienced goats, and I got them in the hot part of summer, and so I kind of
somebody tried to tell you that too.
Yeah, well, maybe experience is the best teacher, and that's another thing. Find people in your area that know what they're doing and listen to them.
And most goat people's going to help you. I mean, people that are trying to raise goats are going to help other people that are trying to raise goats. It's not a competition.
That's right.
It's all about helping each other. You're trying to improve this animal here in the United States. It's not native to it. But you pretty much answered that question. I'd advise to stay away from young goats when you're first starting. Okay. Don't buy them in the middle of the summer, and you're definitely going to buy more than one, because I mean, goats are a herd animal.
And educate yourself, just from my experience with this,
on medicines and types of feed
and plants that they can and cannot eat, and cherry trees.
Yeah, you lost a few to cherry trees.
I lost a few to cherry trees that I thought, since it was outside of the pasture, that it wasn't going to hurt anything, but I didn't think about the leaves shedding into the pasture on a consistent basis, even through the summertime. And it seemed like you could put feed out and the goat would leave the feed and chase those cherry leaves across the pasture trying to eat them, and so some bad stuff happens when they,
like trying to commit goat suicide or something.
Yeah, that's a way of putting it.
But yeah, I would say if I would give you any advice, I would say start with a couple of 3, no more than 5 older goats, at least a year old. Have at least 5 of them. But most of all, before you bring those goats to your farm, make sure you're educated on the needs of a goat, the type of feed you're going to need, what you can and can't feed. have some medicines on hand because you're going to need it unless you're going to run to the vet every time somebody gets sick. Education is the best thing I could.
They could get expensive.
And some people can afford to do that. It all depends on what your budget is, what your
end goal is. Most farmers are trying to do things as cheaply as possible, you know, because that's profit in the end. You know?
And some people just want to do it as a hobby, which is fine.
Yeah.
Know what you want to do is the first thing.
Still educate yourself on what you're getting into, because I mean, goat farming is a lot of fun. It can be very rewarding, but it can also be very painful.
Right.
And that's all about educating yourself, being aware of, you know, what to do, what not to do, but you also have to learn. There is a huge learning curve.
And ask your local, if you have anybody locally, ask them what you may, or call a friend. Call us. I mean, we'd be glad to help anybody.
Okay.
I'm not saying we're the best and we don't have a few things to learn.
We do not have the answers to everything.
We've learned a lot from experience.
Right.
We've learned a lot from other farmers who have done it a lot longer than we have.
Well, and that's always best. Learn from somebody else's mistakes.
Yeah.
And so, okay, if I'm brand new, no more than 5 goats.
Not starting.
But we don't want to start with just one, right?
No, sir.
But does. Start with does.
Start with females, at least 2. And why do you think we need to get at least 2?
They're a herd animal. I mean, they're just like you lock yourself in a room with no friends. I mean,
they will get depressed.
They'll get sick.
I've been there, I know.
They won't eat. I mean, they need friends. I mean, and you know, it's kind of a safety issue too with predators. I mean, the long goat's gonna, you know, perish.
All right, and so something we talked about yesterday for somebody that's just getting into goats, the most important thing is what kind of fence are you going to get. And in my experience, you're not only trying to keep the goat in the fence, you're trying to keep predators out of the fence.
Right.
What do you suggest for somebody that's just getting into goats? And tell me a little bit about what you have here.
Biggest thing is going to be a sturdy fence that's going to hold up. I mean, goats are rough on fences, and we've got a 48-inch cattle fence here. It's going to be a field fence, but we started out with just that, and then we had a big problem with the goats scratching down the side of it. So
they
love to rub on the fence. So what they're doing is bowing the fence out. So we came back and we put a single strand of it's going to be electric fence about 18 inches high.
Okay.
And that just keeps them off their fence. Some people may say that sounds mean, but you got to remember that's your investment.
Well, and you're also saving the animal's life by keeping them in the fence.
And away from the fence where something could reach through and grab them.
Somebody told me when I first got into goats that if your fence won't hold water, it won't hold a goat, and that's absolutely true. I don't care what kind of setup you've got. Wherever you don't want a goat to go is where they're going to try to go. Right. And so that hot wire, it's not enough to hurt them. It's enough to get their attention, and it's a teaching tool. Right.
They learn very quickly.
That's right. That's right. And it's just one of those things that once they learn it, they don't try it much after that. But every once in a while you'll get one that.
And you know, just make sure your fence is not low, because I mean they will jump it, but you know, this hot wire has been a real big deterrent for keeping them away from the edge of the fence.
Right.
And some people go with completely electric.
I mean, and once they're trained to it, it's possible.
It's all in your preference.
Yeah, well, to get started quick, I went with the Premier One fence that's actually a poultry netting that's the small 2x4 holes, and it's got 10 strands on it, and I've got a pretty hot charger on it. And after they got bit by it a time or two, I've left the farm and left my fence unplugged overnight, and there's nothing there but a plastic net, but they see it and they know. And so goats are not dumb animals.
This here, we got 2 paddocks here. This electric fence is unplugged right now. We had something grounding out over here a little bit earlier, getting against the ground rod, and you know, they're still up there. They're not testing that wire, and we've got electric fence dividing this also. It's 5 strands of hot wire. And by hot charger, you need to elaborate a little on the hot charger.
Yeah.
There's by hot charger, he means probably at least a 4 joule or better. A lot of people try it with a small charger that you could keep dogs or something like that in, but a goat's stubborn. And I think you had a little experience with that.
Well, I did. When I got the Premier One fence, and I love the fence, the solar charger that came with it was just not enough because but right here on the bottom of their feet, they don't have enough meat on the ground to really generate a good shock, and so they don't get bit as easily as other animals. So it actually takes a lot more electricity to keep a goat inside of a fence than it does a pig or a cow.
One thing we did a little different also, and it would have been hard for you to do with your netting fence, every other strand of this 5-wire here is going to be tied off to a ground post. And it's going to be tied off to this exterior fence because just what you're saying, there's not enough contact to the ground there to be able to get a good ground versus electrode there. So you put that strand of wire in there that's tied off to a ground, they bump against it and bump against a hot wire at the same time, and that's a big trainer right there.
Right. And like you said, it's not to hurt the animal.
By no means, and we're probably going to catch flack for that. But
well, you shouldn't though, because at the end of the day, you're trying to save the animal's life by keeping them in the fence. You want to give them the best quality of life while they're here. We talked about that last night. While they're here, you want to give them the best quality of life that you can, and in the midst of protecting that animal, you got to keep them inside. And goats are stubborn, so it's really for their own good, but they don't, like you said, they don't have to get bit too many times to learn. And
then there's other things you can do to control predators and things like that, and I think we might talk about that later.
That's right. Okay. Again, for the first timers that are just getting into it, where would you suggest to go or not to go to purchase goats?
Stay away from sale barns. That's going to be my first big thing when you're first buying goats. Get some experience under your belt. By sale barn, I mean an auction house or something like that. A lot of communities have poultry auctions and stuff like that sometimes have goats come through. Lots of times that goat's there for a reason. I mean,
they usually have some
people are getting rid of them for some reason, and without the experience, you're not going to be able to recognize or identify that problem. Or when you get it home, you may not know how to treat it. My biggest advice, and Mallory will be with me on the same page, is check social media, check Craigslist. Lots of times go to somewhere where you can go and visit the farm. See what conditions they're raised in. Some people raise goats in a barn. We choose not to. It provides a lot hardier animal in our opinion.
Right.
Call some local people. Call us. We may know somebody in your area.
And if you can't find somebody local, you can always go to your local county USDA office.
Extension office. They may have some good farm.
They may have some advice on where you can go.
Okay.
And who has...
I'd always suggest buying off the farm when you're a first time buyer. Buy from somebody. Yeah, you're gonna pay a little more for that animal, but if it's a good farm, you're gonna know you're getting something worthy that's not gonna die when you get it home.
Right. So
and there's nothing to be said about getting goats from a sale barn. We have several that are good hardy animals, and we lucked out on it.
But we knew what we were looking at before we went that route. Experience.
Yeah, so you're saying when you go to those sales, if you're inexperienced, and you're just learning, you may not know what to look for when you go and look at these animals. So you need to wait till later on in your journey with it before you start going, because some of these animals may have problems, and that's the reason that people take them to a sales to get them off of their farm.
And they don't have to sell them to someone off of their farm. a lot of people have a conscience. You know, they're not going to sell you a sick animal off their farm. We won't sell you a sick animal.
And that's not to say that
They're not say that everyone's sick. Some people's just getting out of it and don't know where to sell it. Their market may not be good in their area.
But you just don't know. You don't get the one-on-one. You get to ask questions about where that animal came from, if it's healthy, if it's kitted, if it's, because you're going in blind.
You're taking a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. So we know good fencing. Go to a local farm and look around, and that would be a place to purchase animals and
Do your research.
do your research, educate yourself on medicine. So at the end of the day, some people, as you said, may want to do this as a hobby, but then there are some people that might want to get into it to start a small business. So is this something that over time could be lucrative if you do it the right way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Most of our, and I hate to go this route and say this route, but a goat is a meat animal.
Okay.
Just like a lamb is a meat animal. But a large part of our meat market in this area is imported.
Right.
If you get the numbers to sustain that amount, then you're not going to make money your first year unless you're a millionaire already
Right.
and can afford that kind of money into it. But by year 5, I would say you could be making some money if you manage your herd right.
Okay.
And that's through selective breeding. That's through retaining your does that you want to keep, that you do want to breed, and a lot of them don't make that cut.
Yeah.
You can't keep everything. You can't keep every buck. You can't keep every doe because they're just not meant to breed, or they're not meant to
Absolutely.
carry a kid. You just have. That's why we keep animals for 8 months to a year.
To know what it is before we sell it.
Yeah.
And know
We're
which
going to take
ones-
that chance for you again.
Okay. Yeah. So you just brought something up. Let's talk about it. These animals, even though some people do have them as pets, they are livestock.
Yes.
They're not. These are not cats. They're not dogs. These are livestock. The same as a cow. The same as a pig. And
Chicken, turkey.
yeah, and I read somewhere a few weeks ago that 63% of red meat consumed around the world is goat.
It is.
And so with the Hispanic population and the Asian population,
Indian.
yeah, that are migrating in to America, the demand for goat meat has shot through the roof in the last few years, and so there's a huge market for it. And you've told me there's more of a demand than farmers can meet.
Right.
Is that right?
It's all your big importer right now is Australia, and everybody knows, I'm sure, if they've been keeping up with it, what Australia is going through right now.
Right.
And the market here is it's going to plummet. I mean, if more farmers don't step up and start raising goat and lamb, because now they're not going to be able to import it. They're suffering a huge fire over there, and
Right.
We're going to have to kind of step in and help meet that market. And you touched on a lot of our customers are ethnic groups. That's going to be your big, but I mean, we're sitting right in the middle of the area where we're very diverse.
Yeah.
We've been very lucky with our sales, and that's all been by word of mouth. We haven't really advertised. We haven't really
And
gotten
of course,
out
the
there.
highway.
Yeah, the highway has been our best.
Yeah, we saw that.
our best advertiser. People just stop by and introduce themselves, whether they want a goat
Or
as
just
a
wanna
pet
learn.
or
They want to learn.
or they want to learn.
These goats need a lot of copper, as I found out, because when I first got into it, I didn't know that.
We're in a copper deficient area of the
That's right. That's right. And so some of my little goats, their coat was looking kind of shabby. It wasn't real slick like it was when I first got them, and their horns and their hooves started splitting. And so when you came up and you looked, you said, well, that looks like copper deficiency. And so I've tried to remedy that situation since then, and it really has improved the look
Oh yeah.
of my livestock. And so what, tell me a little bit about the mineral that you give here.
We give a mineral by Sweet Licks, made by Sweet Licks. It's a cattle mineral.
It's called Copperhead.
It's called Copperhead. It's a lot of your farmers feed it to black cows,
Okay.
and that's because a lot of your black cows will get like the main sign in that they'll start getting a red sheen to them.
Okay.
That's a copper deficiency.
I got you.
And that's from being in a copper deficient area. The soil doesn't produce that through the grasses and forage that they're eating. So you, as the farmer, have to add that back to the diet.
Okay.
And I want to stop you right there, because you need to be. This goes back to when you're just starting out. You know, you need to be aware of your area. What are you deficient in? You could
Yeah.
be deficient in
Selenium.
cobalt, B12, and it all comes from your grazing air, what they forage on. The southeast is notorious for being copper deficient in our grasses and our forage, what goats like to eat. And so being very knowledgeable about your area and what is going on in your environment. Not everybody has to do a copper.
There's maps you can find and look them up on the internet, and that'll tell you what areas are deficient in what minerals. But
Okay.
copper is a big needed area for goats and cattle and livestock period.
Okay.
And they can get too much. You can overfeed.
Except for sheep. Yeah, sheep are known to build a copper system very fast.
But
Yeah.
you can feed a goat too much copper.
We've talked about these animals being livestock, and obviously we know what the deal is with livestock. They're either here to produce milk or meat, and that's what they're here for. That is the reason for them being here.
Right.
Okay. And so my question to you is, even though they're not dogs and cats and they're not pets, do you ever get attached to them?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you think she won't be attached to that little one right there?
I can see that.
I mean, as she's eating the leaves over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get attached, but you just got to understand what you're raising these animals for. I mean, you may be attached to one, and they may not be the best thing you've ever produced, but you're not going to sell them to anybody to add to their herd if they're not top-notch quality.
Right.
You've got to do what's right for the animal and what's right for the market.
Right.
And I feel good about, people ask all the time, how can you eat your own goat? How can you sell your goats for meat? I'm satisfied with, we give our goats the best care possible. We give them a good life. They're not in a feedlot. They're able to be a goat throughout their life. And I'm okay with giving somebody nutrition
Right.
for that reason. And it just is what it is.
Well, just about everything that you go
You
out
can get
and buy.
attached to a cow. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not just cute, cuddly little goats. I mean,
Yeah, everything you go out and buy in the grocery store that has a shelf life is not going to be healthy for you. So if you know what the animal, how it was raised, what it ate, how it was cared for, those types of things, that's some of the most healthy food that can be produced, in my opinion.
And a lot of everybody's food does come from a feedlot.
you mean
Or-
meat wasn't made in the grocery store?
No, it's not. It's not made in the grocery store. Some people would believe that, but
I mean, a farmer raised that beef, raised that pork, raised that chicken. Some did on free range, like we do. Some people do it in a chicken house or in a feedlot.
But
And there's nothing wrong with either one.
I can guarantee you that farmer poured his heart and hard work into everything he's got out there.
Right.
It's not you just dump some animals out there and hey, they're gonna make it.
Right.
That's a 24/7 job.
yeah,
Even though some may work other jobs, this is which we do. We work a full-time job also, but this is also a second job. And
Okay.
it's busy, it's hard work.
So what do you do other than farming here?
I work for a local city in the engineering department.
Okay. Okay. What do you do, Mallory?
And I work at a local vet clinic.
Okay. So you've kind of got an edge as far as doctoring these animals. You've got people that you can go to for advice on that.
Yeah, I do have an advantage. I have numerous resources at my disposal. I can call just about any time of day to get advice, to get any kind of doctoring need.
We have a farm vet that comes out here, and lots of times he just, there'll be days he just stops by and says, "Hey, I want to check over everybody. This isn't going to cost you anything today. I've got a couple of students with me.
Okay.
I'm going to teach them a few things here," and we're, that's something we help them with, and in turn they help us.
That's super nice.
That's farming. You help each other.
Right. Yeah, that's super nice to have that resource at your disposal.
Yeah, we've gotten a little bit spoiled with that.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that, and we're very lucky to be close and fortunate to have somebody that cares about your farm and cares how you're doing, how they're growing, and doesn't they don't care if you call them at midnight.
Yeah.
But
that's their job and they love it. I mean, that's what we've got here. We love what we're doing here.
Okay. That brings us to my last question, and then we're going to walk around. I'm going to let you show me some things. We're going to get into the fun part of this, and we've talked about what you do outside of farm, what you do to make your living, to fund this right now. But what are your long-term goals? I mean, what do you want to do here? Is this something that you want to do for the rest of your life? Is this going to be something that you're just trying? I mean, what's your goals here?
I mean, I was raised around agriculture, and obviously, I grew up right down the road from you. Family farmed, all kinds of things like that, and I was raised in it, and it's something I wouldn't mind doing the rest of my life. It's an enjoyable job. You can make it what you want it to be. We started this as a grown-up land operation here. We bought this place with no idea that we wanted to raise goats, and we had all grown up out here. We fenced it in, put some goats in it, and man, we figured out there's a market for it.
Right.
So we grew off of that.
Just kind of fell into it.
Okay.
And we've enjoyed it. Some days were really hard. We wanted to give up on it.
Oh yeah.
But that was that hard learning curve.
Our end goal is we want to get all this fenced in out here and run the number of goats we can run here, and then we're going to purchase another piece of property.
Okay.
And we're looking at grown-up properties is what we're looking at. We don't want this cleaned up property like this already.
Right.
We're looking at grown-up properties that everybody else is going to consider undesirable. It's not good for a cattle operation, not good for anything but what we want to do.
Just holding the world together is all it's
holding
good
the
for.
world together. And I think you've got a place like you.
I've got a place just like that, and they're going to see.
And it's free goat feed.
We're going to do some more videos in the future and show you what, how we're working on fencing this in, and show you some things that we're doing differently here than other people, contrary to belief, may be doing.
Right. So stay with us, because these guys are going to be starting a channel of their own, Longshore Farms, and like we've touched on, they specialize in meat goats. And so their long-term goals here are to, when they retire from their day jobs, they hope to have this in full stride by then, and so that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. And we're going to be adding some honeybees. We'll do some videos on us learning that. Maybe not horrific videos, but we're hoping to add some meat chickens that you've already done a little bit with, cleaned your own meat chickens and things like that. We're hoping to add that to just improve what we've got here already.
Yeah. It sounds like our goals are pretty similar in what we're doing, so we're going to wrap it up right there. Guys, have a great day. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Lulu!
Goats are like, what the heck? He's like, where did my boyfriends go? They're in the woods. We should have went.
These 3 gals right here actually belong to me, and Cody is gracious enough to let me bring them down here to, oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Mm-hmm. Did you get that? Yep.
I don't know where the bucks are.
Don't look at me.
Are you videoed?
Yeah.
Hey, go!
All right, let's take a look in here.
I grew up where we never thought to lock our doors at night. One grocery store, a 5 and dime, and just one traffic light. We'd go to school each morning where we'd say the pledge and pray. And mamas never worried when the kids went out to play. In God's country, everything made perfect sense. In God's country, wish it was that way again. We'll still fight to keep her free now, won't we? In God's country. When war broke out, this little town gave more than one young life. Their names are etched in granite here to mark their sacrifice. I can't help but think they'd all roll over in their graves if they saw what we turned into, 'cause we haven't kept the faith. In God's country, seems like we lost our way. In God's country, most folks I know would say we'll still fight to keep her free now, won't we? In God's country. Now you can't find a baby Jesus at Christmas on the square. You won't see the 10 Commandments at the courthouse anywhere. I don't know just when it happened, but it sure breaks